I will be going into the common tiling failures, yeah, and of course, and also how these common failures can be prevented, yeah. So as you can see from the slide here, I will be talking on the shade variation, which is a very common problem for ceramic tiles and porcelain tiles. Of course, I will be covering hollowness as well, hollowness of tiles, and also the bonding. Leapage. Leapage is now getting more and more common because of the tiles are now getting bigger and bigger. Yeah, leapage normally do not occurs with small format tiles. Yeah, but it is more prominent or more obvious with the large format tiles. And also, as you can see from the bottom right, now I call this HAZE mark. Yeah, I think from what I've heard from my sales team that there have been some complaints, yeah, on the HAZE mark on polished porcelain tiles, yeah, and I will explain what is the causes of this and how this can be prevented. Now, first, shade variation, I would say very common, yeah. I think I would say this is the most common complaints for ceramic tiles and porcelain tiles, yeah. So let's talk about the causes, yeah. What are the causes of shade variation and how we can actually minimize or control this? First of all, I have also come across complaints on shade variation. Now, number one, now some of the shade variation complaints are actually caused by contractors. Well, of course, I'm not pushing all the blame to contractors, but it does happen to quite many job sites that different shades, yeah, of tiles are actually mixed. Yeah, of course, tiles comes on the cartons. There are indication of the shade numbers. Yeah, and at certain job sites, the workers, yeah, it may not be the tiling contractors themselves, because workers when they actually collect the tiles from the pallet, and they sort of sometimes mix the different shades, yeah, and then these tiles happen to be installed in the same area, yeah, causing this sort of shade variation problem. Okay, quite a common problem as well, yeah, mixing of different shades, yeah, during installation of tiles in the same area. And number two, now there are some job sites, yeah, whereby there are complaints on shade variation, but basically when the technical team of the tile suppliers, when they go in, they go for investigation, they found out that it's actually not a quality problem. However, but it is actually caused by customer. They were not aware that what they have selected, yeah, that the tiles they have selected actually has got this V2, V3 sort of characteristics. Okay, now of course, if the customer, if they actually choose the tiles and they are not aware that they have a V2 or V3 sort of characteristics, and what they would expect of the tiles would be to have every piece of tiles to look uniform, then of course they will actually not be very happy. Okay, this has happened, and especially this happens quite often in the renovation market. Okay, now number three, now shade variation within the same batch. Yeah, now in some of the shade variation complaints, yeah, contractor sometimes do come and inform us that, oh, they do not mix the different shades, yeah, but it's actually they are actually only using tiles from the same batch, from the same shade. However, they still get the variation in the shade. Yeah. Now, of course, now this would probably be some mixing, yeah, of different shades into the cartons at the factory site. Yeah. So it is very important when contractors, yeah, when they during installation, they see this sort of problem. Yeah. What they should do, and it's recommended that they need to call up, they stop installation and call up the tile supplier so that this thing can be sorted out. Yeah. So do not, yeah, if it happens that some they notice that there are variation of shades in the same batch or the same shade. Yeah. And if they can see this during installation, I think it would be best to stop and actually call up the tile supplier so that the problem can be sorted out. Okay. Now you may be asking, why can this happen? Yeah, why can different shades be mixed into the packing? Yeah. Now the answer of this would be in the past, yeah, and I'm talking about Guocera. The sorting of the shades is actually done by workers. Yeah, it's done by human inspection. Now, as you know, if it's done by humans, sometimes the workers get tired, and sometimes they miss out, and different shades will get mixed up and packed into the same carton. Yeah. Now, Guocera they have actually changed, yeah, the sorting, the way they sort the tiles. Yeah. And now it's all now done by machines. Yeah. And this is called automatic sorting machine. Yeah. Which is able to sort the tiles much more better. Okay. Next, tile hollowness. Now, again, quite a common problem. Yeah. And as we know that when the house owner receives the keys to the new house, the first thing they would do would be to take a tapping rod, and they will be tapping on every piece of tile installed on their unit. Okay. Now, causes of hollowness is actually caused by insufficient application of adhesive. Yeah. Whereby there may be a lot of air pockets beneath the tile. Yeah, so when you tap the tiles, the tile sounds hollow or drumming. Okay. Now, will hollowness lead to tile debonding? This is the common question. Yeah. Will hollowness lead to tile debonding? Now, it depends. It depends on the degree of hollowness. Yeah. Let's say, for example, you are tapping on one piece of tile, and only the four corners, the four little corners are actually hollow, and most likely the tiles will not fail. Yeah. However, if you tap on a piece of tile installed on your floor wall, and about 50% of the tile is hollow, then this is not a really very good sign. Okay. Now this is now basically tile debonding is. As you can see from these four photos, tiles popping up from the floor wall. Now, I'm going to now cover the causes, yeah, the common causes of hollowness and debonding. All right. Now, what I'm going to talk about, the causes here, is that whenever there is a hollowness issue or a debonding issue, this problem can be caused by one or more of the following reasons, which I'm going to talk about. Okay. I hear some background noises. I think somebody's mic is on. Can you, if you don't mind, I can hear the clicking of the mouse and some flipping of the papers. Yeah. Can you hit your mic, please?
Yeah, I have done that.
Okay. The noise is gone. Okay. Thank you so much. So let me repeat. Yeah. So whenever there's any hollowness or debonding problem, yeah, it can be caused by either one or more of the following reasons, which I'm going to talk about. Okay. Number one. Now, I think this is very common. Yeah. Fixing porcelain tiles using the wrong bonding agent. Okay. Now, for porcelain tiles, when the large format tiles, yeah, was actually introduced in the early 2000s, yeah, this is when porcelain tiles of size 30 by 60 actually came out in the market. Okay, before that it was only 30 by 30, the 1 feet by 1 feet tiles. Okay, in the early 2000s, when the 30-60 of porcelain tiles came into the market, wow, there were a lot of debonding complaints. Okay, now because during that time, when in the early 2000s, the installation method, the contractor was still using cement, okay, for the installation of porcelain tiles. Yeah, I will cover. I will explain why cement is not suitable for porcelain tiles. Yeah, but this is just some history. Yeah, So what happened was that when these new format tiles were out in the market, of course, the tile manufacturers did not actually give the proper method statement. So most of the installation was done using cement mortar. And that was the cause of the massive number of debonding complaints in the early 2000s. Okay. And then, of course, 3060 came out, and then also 60 by 60 polished porcelain also came out in the market. And because the bonding agent used was cement, it causes a lot of this debonding problem. Now, we come to the reason why porcelain tile, why cement doesn't work well to bond porcelain tile. Now, to explain this, remember my table of the 5 different category or types of tiles. I did mention porcelain tile has got the water absorption of very close to 0, less than 0.5%, which means also a piece of porcelain tile is just like a piece of glass. Okay. Now, if you talk to contractors, they will know. If I want to fix glass, I cannot use cement. That is the reason. So for porcelain tiles, if you use cement or a mixture of cement with adhesive, it's not going to work very well. All right. So for the installation of porcelain tiles, the correct type of adhesive should be used. All right. There should be no mixing as well. Okay. Now, of course, the second one is use of incorrect adhesive. Now, as we know in the market, of course, Guocera is not a supplier of adhesive, but of course, there are different types of adhesive which are recommended for different areas of application. Okay. Now, again, if you use the wrong adhesive, and of course, the tiles is not going to stick very well. Okay. Then fixing tiles on a dirty surface. Again, I have seen this happen before in some job sites. Not in projects, but mostly renovation market. Whereby the tile is actually done on a surface which is not so clean. Causing the tiles to fail. After a period of time. And then we have installing tiles after the open time of adhesive. Now, what is open time? So basically, all adhesive has got an open time. Normally the open time for adhesive is about 20 minutes. Now, what does this mean? This means that when the contractor is installing the tiles, when after spreading the adhesive to the substrate or to the tile bag, he will need to complete the tile installation within the 20 minutes, within this open time. And when this open time is exceeded, then the bond strength is not very effective in the long run. All right. Next, fixing tiles too early after screeding. Okay. Now, again, reference is made to MS 1294. Now, MS 1294 is the code of practice for the installation of tiles on the wall and floor. Okay, it's Malaysian standard. It's a tiling standard, right? Now, in the standard, it recommends that the screed layer, has to be allowed to dry for at least 7 days, before tiling commences. Okay. The reason for this is basically because any cementitious material will undergo evaporation, whereby moisture is actually evaporated from the cementitious layer. And when this happens in the first 7 days, and the process of there's one process called hydraulic shrinkage. Now, hydraulic shrinkage is basically when water is evaporated from the cementitious layer, there is a very high shrinkage. Now, imagine if the contractor starts installing the tiles immediately after the screeding, and in this the next 7 days, this screed layer is actually shrinking due to hydraulic shrinkage. So a lot of stresses will be exerted on the tile. Okay. Next is the poor tile adhesive contact. Now you can see from this photo here, the tile has popped out because you will notice that the adhesive contact is actually not sufficient. I would say the coverage would be only about 50%, which is not enough. Okay, now, of course, you'll be asking me what would be the minimum tile adhesive contact? Is there a standard? Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes, there is a standard, which I will cover in the next few slides. There is a standard for the tile adhesive contact. Okay. Now, then there is the fixing tiles with butt joints. Quite a common, I would say, quite a common problem here. Yeah, I've seen many areas, especially areas which are exposed to sun, where the tiles are installed with basically butt joints. Yeah, so fixing tiles with butt joint is not recommended. Yeah. So the next question would be, what would be the recommended tiling gap? Okay, we go to right. Again, reference is made to MS 1294, the code of practice for the installation of wall and floor tiles. It says that the recommended installation gap is minimum 3 millimeters. Yeah, minimum 3. Yeah, it recommends that tiles should not be installed with anything smaller than 3 millimeters. Of course, why? Yeah, you want to know the reason why. Why did MS 1294 recommends this? So basically, the joints between the tiles are required to accommodate for two very important factors. Okay, number one, which is to accommodate for the dimensional tolerance of the tiles. Okay, you remember, yeah, the tiles comes with a tolerance. Even rectified tiles, the size is more uniform, but still there is a tolerance. Yeah, and the second factor, which I think it is so important, it is to accommodate for the substrate contraction and expansion. Okay, substrate contraction and expansion. Okay, now this will explain very well what I talk about the expansion and contraction. Okay, now it is on the expansion of material. Yeah, so again, whenever there is a tile failure, tiles popping out from the floor or wall, the first thing developers or contractors, yeah, or end users, yeah, they will say, the tile is expanded. Yeah, the tile is not fully cooked or fully fired, you know, and the tile expanded. That's why the tiles didn't pop out. But is it true? Yeah, is it because of the expansion of the tile, or is it something else? So now this slide actually explains everything. Yeah, and this is on the expansion of material. Yeah, and there's any material will tend to expand if it's subjected to heat, and this is called the thermal expansion. And any material will also tend to expand if it absorbs moisture. Okay, now for under thermal expansion, you will notice that between ceramic tiles, porcelain tiles, compared with the concrete and cement mortar, you'll notice that the thermal expansion for the concrete and mortar is almost about double that to the tiles. Okay, and for moisture expansion, yeah, you will notice that now you notice that for porcelain tiles, yeah, for moisture expansion, it is very close to zero. The reason is because, remember, porcelain tiles has got very low water absorption. Yeah, so when it doesn't absorb, any material doesn't absorb moisture, it doesn't expand. So porcelain tiles normally have very close to zero moisture expansion. Now you compare the ceramic tiles. Yeah, ceramic tiles do have moisture water absorption. So you notice that the cement mortar actually expands almost 3 times that of the ceramic tiles. Yeah, so when tiles are installed with butt joints, okay, and when the substrate expands and contracts under thermal expansion and under moisture expansion, that is the reason the tile failed. Okay, I hope that explains this very well. Yeah. Now this is a photo of a car porch, very common. Yeah, whereby I mean, of course, you notice that, I don't know whether you can see it, but the tiles are installed almost butt joint. And you notice that this car porch, you can see the sunlight. Yeah, so any areas which are exposed to sunlight, yeah, the tile joints need to be even bigger than 3 millimeters. Okay. Next, the guide for movement, parameter joints, and also tile gap. Yeah. Not only tile gap is need to be allocated, but also movement and parameter joints. They are so important, yeah, to release the underlying stresses from the substrate. Okay. Again, now nowadays there are a lot of large format tiles in the market. When the tiles are larger, essentially they are less joints. Okay, small tiles will have many joints. Yeah. However, when tiles are getting bigger and bigger, when there are already less joints, the incorporation of movement and parameter joints becomes even more so important. Okay. Now this is the guide for the incorporation of the tile joints, the movement joint, and the parameter joints. Yeah. So for internal areas, tile joints, of course, internal areas that are not exposed to sunlight. Tile gap recommended minimum 3 millimeters. Movement joints recommended to be allocated roughly about every 5 to 7 meters. Now again, this depends on the size of the area and also on the size of the tiles. Okay. So now of course, parameter joints are basically when the floor tile reaches the wall, or when it actually it has to have also a minimum 6 millimeter gap, and this is called the parameter joints. For areas which are exposed to sunlight, for example, carport, tile gap minimum 5 millimeters, yeah, and of course, movement joints to be allocated much more closer because there are more expansion and contraction in areas exposed to sunlight. Okay, so this will be a very good guide to incorporate this in the job specs. Oh yeah, okay. Before this, actually, Dennis actually sent me some questions because I actually requested that if you have any questions to send to me so that I can actually address, because I know this is a very big group, yeah, to wait for Q&A at the end, so it may take some time. So Dennis has sent me this 2 questions, yeah, and one of the questions is tile hollowness standard. Okay, what is acceptable? Oh, I haven't covered this yet, yeah. I'm coming to it. Yeah, I'm coming to it. Yeah. Now, some hollow tiles after open, it shows underneath the grouting is complete without voids. Please advise. Okay. Now, of course, the question here is that you have found that there is some tiles which actually has there's some hollowness, or probably the tile has debonded. So when you take out the tiles, you see that there's no voids. Yeah. Yeah, but what could be the cause of this? Now, remember, I mentioned, if I go back to the causes of debonding, okay. Now, the causes of debonding or hollowness, it is not only caused by the voids or the coverage. Now, for example, we need to look at, I don't know who asked these questions. Now, the area which has debonded. Now, first of all, we need to look at whether there were any joints or not. Okay, whether there's any joints or whether the tiles were installed but joints. All right. Now again, I do not know during the installation how fast the contractor to install the tiles. All right. Could it be immediately after the screening, or did he follow the recommended 7 days? Or when the contractor installed the tiles, yeah, even though the coverage is full, whether the contractor installed the tiles after the open time could be a reason. Yeah. And now again, what bonding agent did the contractor use? Was it the correct adhesive with the correct bond strength, or cement was used? Now, if cement was used, even though the coverage was full, the tiles is going to fail. Yeah, it doesn't mean that there's no void on the tiles, that it is actually caused by the what do you call it? Yeah, so there are many causes. Yeah, the debonding and hollowness can be caused by any of the following reasons. I hope that answers your questions. Yeah, I hope I answered this question, your question. Of course, you also asked about the hollowness standard. I'm coming to that. Let me talk about this first, yeah. Hollowness standard coming soon, okay. Now, how to achieve an optimal adhesive contact, okay. Now, of course, large format tiles, it is very important to actually have a optimal adhesive coverage, yeah. So now, in order to get that, in order to achieve that, of course, you need the proper tool, yeah. And the proper tool is you need to use a notch trowel, a trowel with a notch, yeah. And also, there are ways to actually maximize the adhesive coverage. The application of the adhesive is also very important, yeah. The application of the adhesive in a straight line would be much preferred than the common application in multiple directions. Yeah, a lot of job sites you'll notice that the contractor, they normally go for this multiple sort of application of the adhesive. Yeah, but of course, the application in a straight line is much more better because when you actually put in the tiles and you would just press the tiles from left to right, you are able to remove all the trap air. Yeah, easily remove the trap air compared to when the adhesive is actually applied in multiple directions. Yeah, the trap air would find it very difficult to escape. Yeah, so the recommended application of the adhesive would be to do it in a straight line. Of course, straight line needs a little bit of effort. Yeah, and the multiple direction is much more easier. Yeah, and that's the reason why you will notice that at job sites, most of the time it is done in multiple direction. Okay, and also it is recommended that a thin coat of adhesive be applied to the tile bag, and if you can actually cover the adhesive wholly to the tile bag, then at least you will optimize the coverage. And also, if there is no air pockets, yeah, it will also not only, of course, prevent hollowness, but it will also improve the impact resistance. Yeah, so you have any part of the tiles which are hollow, when anything heavy drop on it, the tiles will tend to break more easily. Yeah, so if the coverage is full, then it actually will improve the impact resistance of the tiles. Now, this is the one, yeah. The question was asking what is the minimum requirement of the tile adhesive contact. Yeah, MS 1294 actually recommends that the coverage between tile adhesive minimum 90%. I know there will be questions saying that, oh, QLA6 says no hollowness. Yeah, I think you will have questions like that. But the thing is, now if you talk to any adhesive manufacturers or suppliers, yeah, they will tell you, yes, you may be able to get 100%, but not all. Yeah, it's not possible. It's probably not practical. But as long as you can achieve this, and since it's already in a standard, and you can achieve this, you will not get any failure. Okay. Now, this slide is to address questions on some contractors asking what sort of tiles need to be soaked in water before installation. Now, of course, for porcelain tiles, water absorption very low. You soak the tiles in water, and it doesn't help. Yeah. So the reason of why tiles need to be soaked in water is because, especially when tiles have got high water absorption, yeah, tiles with high porosity, yeah. Now, tiles with high porosity basically are tiles with 6% or higher in water absorption. Okay. Now, of course, for installation using cement mortar, yeah, for some, I would think most of the, I would say a large percentage of porous tiles are actually installed using cement mortar. But of course, if cement mortar is used for the installation, the tiles need to be soaked in water. What sort of tiles? It will be tiles in these two groups. Okay. For tiles with water absorption 6% and above, the tiles need to be soaked in water before installation. The reason is, it's very obvious, yeah. So if you don't soak the tiles in water, if you apply the cement mortar to the tile bag, the tiles will immediately absorb the moisture from the cement. Yeah, and once there's no moisture, the tile is not going to bond very well onto the substrate. Okay. Now, no soaking is necessary if adhesive is used. Okay, so if you are using adhesive in the installation, you do not have to worry about the water absorption of the tiles. Yeah, so for adhesive, no soaking is required. The reason is because for adhesive, the tile manufacturers, they add in a water retention agent. Yeah, and this water retention agent in the adhesive will actually prevent the water from to be absorbed by the tile. Okay. Tile leakage. Now, the tile leakage was not common when tiles were of a 30 by 30 cm size. Yeah, the small format tiles, they are not affected. But now we're getting more and more complaints on tile leakage. Basically, tile leakage is basically when the tile has been installed, one or more of the edges is not at the same level, yeah, with the edge of the adjacent tile. Okay, of course there are standards, yeah, under QLASIC, the leakage should not exceed more than 1 millimeter, and for Conquest, which is a Singapore standard, the leakage should not exceed more than 0.5 millimeter, which I think is very, very stringent. Okay. How to minimize or prevent leakage? Now, first, now again, when when the contractor is actually installing large format tiles, of course, during the installation, he's not going to be able to use the manual tapping. Yeah, he will use the back of the hammer or the rubber mallet to actually tap the tiles to even out the tile edges. Yeah, when the tiles is now getting so big, yeah, manual tapping will not be able to do the job effectively. So the tile leveling system is recommended. Yeah, for large format tiles. When I say large format tiles, it actually applies to tiles of size 30 by 60 centimeter and above. Okay. Now, following the one direction orientation of the tiles, contractors will know that if they look at the back of the tiles, there will be indication of arrows. Okay, and these arrows are basically from the manufacturer. Is actually to indicate the direction of the firing. Yeah, I did have a slide to explain. Yeah, so if the contractor is able to align, yeah, the tiles in one directional orientation, then of course the leakage will be minimized. Now, for those large rectangular format tiles, yeah, large rectangular tiles normally tend to have a more obvious sort of curvature because of the large size. Yeah, so the laying pattern is actually very important. Yeah, so instead of going for the 50-50 offset, it would be recommended to go for the 85-15 offset. Okay, for those large rectangular tiles. All right, and also tile gap to be minimum 4 millimeters. The reason for the larger gap is because when tiles are too close together, the leakage is more obvious. Yeah, so if the tiles are actually laid further apart, then the leakage is not so obvious. Yes, this is on the what we call shadowing effect. Yeah, so normally when sometimes it happens at job sites. Yeah, especially when the tiles has been installed, and of course the lights in the ceiling is not on yet, but of course when there's an incident light at the which comes in from the open door or open window, and you have the reflection, then you have this shadowing effect, and it actually can intensify the leakage effect. Okay, I call this the shadowing effect. Yeah. Now, of course, when you have a light coming in from the open door and floor, it is quite difficult to eliminate. Yeah. However, for wall tiles, yeah, the placement of light can actually minimize the leakage, the effect of leakage. Yeah, of course, if you were to install the lights actually next to the on the wall like this, you can see that the effect of leakage, yeah, really bad. Yeah, of course, to minimize this on the wall, then you can actually place the light probably about a few feet away. Yeah, to actually minimize the leakage effect. Yeah, from the from the shadowing effect. Now, next is the haze mark. Now, I use this term haze mark. Yeah. Now, I'm not referring to grout haze or cement haze, which is actually which actually happens after the contractor has actually applied the grout. Okay, this is not grout haze, but this is haze mark. And what I mean this is that normally when this happens is that when the contractor, and it happens normally to polish porcelain tile, when they remove the plastic or the protection, yeah, protective sheet from the floor at the job site, after at least about 1 or 2 months, they find this sort of defect. Okay, and basically this defect it affects the tile edges, yeah, and you notice that I call it haze because of the loss of gloss, yeah, the gloss has actually been compromised. Okay, so it is a loss of gloss along the tile edges, normally found after the protective sheet has been removed. Okay, and what I've also found out that it actually appears more severe near open windows. Okay, and also what I have actually found, I've actually done a lot of tests on this, sort of a simulation test. Open windows, because the water from the rain can actually splash in and it can go beneath the sheet. Yeah. So from my testings, yeah, and also simulation work, what I have found is basically it is caused by moisture. Okay, moisture trapped beneath the protective sheet. Yeah, and this causing a reaction with the grout material, right? And what compound in the grout material is basically what I found is the calcium oxide. Yeah, the calcium oxide. Now, all cementitious material in the grout, in the adhesive, contains calcium oxide. Yeah, very high percentage of calcium oxide. And when it comes in contact with water, yeah, it gives this reaction, and it forms calcium hydroxide, as you can see from the formula. And calcium hydroxide, it is a very corrosive sort of compound, yeah, which actually attacks the surface of the polished surface. Okay. Now, I've actually also done some microscopic studies. Yeah. This basically is an original tile surface. Yeah, and this is the haze area where the tile actually has been affected. You'll notice under the microscope, yeah, the surface basically has been etched, yeah, has been actually attacked. It's like someone has actually used a very strong chemical, and it has actually attacked the surface of the tiles. It is not really the nano sealant, yeah, it's basically the surface of the tiles which has been attacked. Yeah, so it is caused by this reaction. Okay, so you know the culprit is actually water. Yeah, and it actually confirms that, you know, the why it is more severe when in the areas whereby it is actually next to the open windows. Yeah, during the rainy season, water splash in, it goes beneath the sheet, and then it actually create this reaction. So remark on haze mark. Okay, haze mark actually cause a permanent damage. It is a permanent damage. It cannot be cleaned off. Yeah, and the affected tiles need to be replaced. Yeah, number one, either replaced or the surface has to be repolished. Okay, so therefore it is better to prevent. Yeah, prevention is better than cure. Yeah, so again, it is a chemical attack. It affects the glossy surface of all tiles. Yeah. Now you may be asking, yeah, does matte tiles actually have this effect? It does happen, but because matte tiles, the attack is not so obvious. So when it's not so obvious, nobody complains. Okay, so because the polished tile surface is so glossy, the attack is more obvious, and it actually attacks. It actually affects all brands of tiles. All right, even Italian tiles, yeah, it affects because it's a chemical attack. Now, to prevent haze mark, So what we can do is to allow the grout to dry sufficiently, at least about 40 hours before covering up. Because if the after grouting and if the contractor covers the floor too early, this grout needs to evaporate. And when this evaporates, moisture comes out. Yeah. And this actually can cause the reaction. Yeah. So the grout needs to be allowed to dry at least for about 2 days before covering up. And after covering up, the covered floor needs to be kept dry. Okay? Do not allow for water to go beneath the sheet, because when you have water, it causes this reaction. Okay. Now, again, to talk about a bit of plastic sheet. Yeah, plastic sheet basically is a non-absorbent material. Yeah, and even at certain hot days, you can find condensation. Yeah, and this condensation can also cause very slight sort of haze mark. Okay, so of course, I mean, there are alternatives to plastic sheet. Yeah, protective sheet which are more absorbent. For example, plywood, materials like craft paper. They are slightly more absorbent. Yeah, of course, than plastic sheet. And of course, then the site will always come back and say, these are more expensive material. Yeah, but the important thing is, we know now the haze mark is caused by water, and if water can be eliminated or prevented from going beneath the sheet, then you can actually prevent the haze mark. Okay. Alternatively, yeah, because I talked about the calcium oxide in the cementitious material. Yeah, so you can eliminate either water or you eliminate the calcium oxide. So what you can do is, the alternative would be to use alternative grout or alternative material in the grout. Now, this grout basically polyurethane or epoxy grout. Again, of course, there have been questions, when I say this, I get questions of, oh, these are more expensive material. Yeah, definitely they're more expensive. Yeah, but the thing is, since now we know the cost is actually water and also the calcium oxide, so the cheapest way would be to try to prevent, to keep the floor as dry as possible. Yeah. And if, of course, there have been also a lot of job sites say, oh, we can't, because job sites we cannot control the the water coming in. Yeah. But so if you can't, then we have to go for more expensive alternative. Okay. So if you use polyurethane and epoxy grout, you can have water ponding, whatever. There's no issue because there's no reaction. Yeah. Water will not react. There's no calcium oxide in the polyurethane and epoxy. So you can allow the water to splash in from the open windows for 3 months, 4 months, no problem. Haze mark will not occur. Okay. Now, efflorescence basically is the formation of whitish powder on the tile surface, which actually comes out to the porous area of the tile, which is the tile grout, the tile joints. Okay. And normally, efflorescence is very common in wet areas and also outdoor areas. Okay, so what are the causes of efflorescence? So basically, it is caused by the evaporation process. Okay, now cement and sand contains a lot of soluble salts. So efflorescence is not caused by the tile. Yeah, for example, we are using porcelain tiles, zero water absorption. There's no soluble salts content in the body of a ceramic tile. All right. So this is actually caused by the process of evaporation, whereby the soluble salts which are present in the sand and cement, it seeps out, and it seeps out. Which is the most porous areas of the tiling process would be the cementitious, the porous grout, the porous joints. So it comes out in the process of evaporation, and it will be deposited on the tile surface.